Hello everyone, good evening and welcome to the London Design Medal Awards. It's been a long time since there's been a gathering like this of the design community, and it's actually about three celebrations. The first celebration, of course, is for the winners of this year's London Design Medals. Four absolutely amazing people, extraordinary people, and they're going to be celebrated tonight. It's also about the celebration of London as the design capital of the world. We've been doing that now with the London Design Festival for, well, this is the 19th festival, so it's 19 years this year. And we're going to celebrate again tonight the way in which this capital harbours and nurtures such fantastic designers and people in the design community. And the third celebration is really simply because we're here together. And I don't think there's been a gathering like this in any of the festival activities, certainly now, since the pandemic began. But here we are. I hope that you have fun, you enjoy the medals, and I'm going to hand over to Ben Evans, who's going to compare for the rest of the evening. Thank you.
Some of you were actually at our first event in 2007. London Mayor Ken Livingstone gave Zaha Hadid the first London Design Medal in the Royal Festival Hall. And since then, we've honoured 38 designers. Now, who can forget Vidal Sassoon's speech in St Paul's Cathedral? Or Richard Rogers' words were looking down on Lloyd's of London from the top floor of the Leadenhall building. And in 2019, of course, Vivienne Westwood appropriately in the members' dining room of the House of Commons. Tonight, we have four more wonderful and deserving winners chosen by our eminent jury. And to present the first award, the Lifetime Achievement Medal, please welcome the Chief Customer Officer of Fortnum & Mason, Simon Thompson.
On behalf of Fortnum & Mason, we're thrilled to sponsor this year's Lifetime Achievement Award once again, which recognises an individual who has made a significant and fundamental contribution to the design industry. The recipient of this year's award has been described as the ultimate designer's designer and one of the founding fathers of British graphic design as we know it today. He first trained as an architect before moving into design, initially product and then interior, describing himself as drifting from one job to another, designing everything from light fittings to nightclubs. But the start of his interest in graphic design began with designing a muck shifter for a farming magazine cover, and the rest, as they say, is history. Over the course of the next 6 decades, he went on to revolutionize branding, and in 1965, he co-founded one of the world's most iconic design companies, Wolff, along with his partner, Wally Earlens. In the years that followed, he became synonymous with originality and innovation, with work characterized by its unconventional humor and humanity, with a particular love of using animals, and most famously the Bovis hummingbird. One of his favorite things in the creative process is not knowing what to do, and at that point, that's when creativity kicks in. All of us here today will have been directly influenced by his work in one way or another. The notion of branding as it exists today is because of the work that he has pioneered. Throughout his career, his clients have spanned many genres, from the London Underground to Audi, Volkswagen, Shell, the Ministry of Sound, and Apple Records, to mention just a few. He is also a patron of the Inclusive Design Challenge with Helen Hamlin Centre at the RCA and a member of the government-sponsored Design and Technology Alliance Against Crime. Without further ado, it gives me great pleasure to award the Lifetime Achievement Medal to Michael Wolff.
Few of us get to where we are alone. And so I owe this award to all those people who've supported me through my career so far. And in particular, of course, to my late and former partner, Wally Earlens. Although my business has usually been in graphic design, I owe this award to the inspirations and influences that I've been enriched with by many great designers. People like Terence Conran, like Alan Fletcher, like Izzy Miyake, all of those through, I was fortunate to know, as well as Frank Gehry, who I've never met, Inga Mora, who I always think of as a genius, and three of the most wondrous photographers, Eve Arnold, Elliot Erwitt, and my dear friend, the late Tony Evans. Now I'd like to acknowledge and thank some of my courageous and trusting clients, and believe me, they were courageous. All were creative people, and all entered into the spirit of their projects with us. I've always welcomed participation of my clients. So the first inspirational client was the brilliant Wilfred Cass. He was transforming Hadfield paints and doing it with the help of the wily red fox we designed for him. It was a design that put Wolff and particularly Hadfields on the map. The second discerning and open-minded client was John Folds. John turned finance for industry into a successful and independent investment trust, which we named 3i. The third charismatic client, a Frenchman, Bernard Hanom. He was leading Renault. We equipped him with a naming system and a look with which to turn into a successful international brand that it is today. The fourth sophisticated and urbane client was Simon Hornby. There's probably some people in the room who enjoyed working with Simon. He led W.H. Smith. He was a great patron of design, and I was lucky to have been his design advisor for 10 years. That's four. The fifth is Edward Panteleif, the successful and modest Russian entrepreneur. We transformed an ordinary regional bank into a genuinely people-friendly bank throughout Russia. Because of us, their ATMs were the first in the world to say thank you to their customers. I've never made distinctions between the different disciplines in which designers work. All design is a consequence of imagination. And as George Bernard Shaw once said, and it was so aptly said, imagination is the beginning of creation. You imagine what you desire, you will what you imagine, and at last you create what you will. My formal education went from the horrors of being a boarder at an English public school, ending up in both the Architectural Association School of Architecture and in Hammersmith School of Art. Of course, my education has never stopped. We're always learning about new countries, new cultures, new attitudes, new enterprises, and new people. From time to time, I become engaged across a broader and, to my mind, much more essential aspect of design. It's design involved in creating a vision for an organization and then encouraging the refreshed spirit of an enterprise to realize it. Two more of Bernard Shaw's prescient quotes. They always hold my hand. I really think of them as holding my hand. The first, we don't stop playing because we grow old. We grow old because we stop playing. The second, this was one that Wally Erlins taught me, the people who get on in this world are the people who get up and look for the circumstances they want. And if they can't find them, they make them. And finally, a quote by Walt Disney. If you can dream it, you can do it. Imagine the kind of designing that we need to dream and conjure up now. Design with which to face and address the climate crisis with wildfires happening all around the world, as well as the unprecedented storms and dangerous floods. Thankfully, there are designers who use creativity to work in these far greater realms. As for me, in the world I've worked in so far, I continue to believe, as I've always believed, that my best work is yet to come. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Simon, and congratulations, Michael. Now, the next category, the Design Innovation Medal, will be presented by jury member and Deputy Mayor for Culture and Creativity, Justin Simon.
Thank you for inviting me to present this year's Design Innovation Medal. This year's award is going to an incredible individual who's pushing boundaries in radical and amazing ways, using architecture to fight for social justice. Tonight's winner is the creator of the world's first architectural detective agency. Called Forensic Architecture, it was founded in 2011 at Goldsmiths College here in London, and it unites designers and architects, filmmakers, scholars, and scientists. And together they investigate human rights violations and solve crimes. They've created maps and media archives about the Grenfell tragedy. They've worked with ex-survivors from Syria to reconstruct a secret prison using architectural and acoustic modelling. And they supported many international legal cases working with NGOs and human rights lawyers, presenting their investigations through sculpture, films, and photography, often seen at design biennales around the world. Forensic Architecture is led by an inspirational architect who couldn't be more deserving of the Design Innovation Medal. So it is my very great pleasure to welcome to the stage the founder and director of Forensic Architecture, Professor Eyal Weizman. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. This is much bigger than it seemed online. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for this really generous introduction. And thank you for honoring forensic architecture. And I guess by honoring forensic architecture, you honor also the communities, the frontline communities with which we work. And I'm particularly excited that in this forum, in a design forum such as that, you give place to another perhaps trajectory of not only design technologies in order to produce objects as beautiful as they are and necessary as they are, buildings and objects, but actually reconstruct scenarios and reconstruct events that happen around us. In forensic architecture, we use the kind of innovations that the design industry and design technology is offering us to expose police violence, to expose drone strikes by the CIA, to expose Israeli bombing in occupied Gaza, to expose the disappearance, the enforced disappearance of students in Mexico and in other places. And I think that to a certain extent, it calls for us, for designers, to use our techniques and technologies in a way that actually intervenes in the world around us, in a way that makes claims in a time where truth, where state lies become so prominent in different places. So thank you very much for that. I'm going to cherish that and share it with my team when I'm back in the office tomorrow.
Turning to the third category, the Emerging Designer Medal, please welcome Roland Lamb, CEO of Roli and winner of the same medal in 2014.
Mac really attends to the craft of making and finds the potentials and the synergies in the materials he uses, particularly in woodworking. You know, with respect to meaning, he deals with themes of identity that come from his, heritage as a British-born designer of Jamaican descent, and, explores the themes of identity and the contested histories that go with that. He is an extraordinary talent and an absolutely richly deserving recipient of this year's Emerging Talent Award, and even the little champagne pop that you heard is perfectly appropriate to celebrate him. So please, welcome Matt Collins.
So, good evening. I won't say much, but I couldn't stand up here and receive this award without, saying something. I feel I have a bit of a responsibility to my community, and I feel that I have a responsibility to the design industry, neither of who I intend to let down. I would then also like to recognize all of those who have supported me and championed me and given me the encouragement and the confidence to pursue this path. Many of these mentors are in this very room, and there are many who aren't, but you know who you are. And finally, I would like to thank my guest for the evening, who is my mum, Tia. So directly to you, I'd like to thank you for being resilient and for being intelligent and for the unwavering display of support and pride that I always receive. Though you're often in the background of the things that I do, it's not very often that you get to actually attend this glossy side of things. So this is for you. I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Well, what a lovely speech. Thank you, Roland, and many congratulations, Mac. Our final award and the London Design Medal will be presented by artist and designer Ev Devlin, herself a winner in 2017.
I was feeling a bit rubbish because I'd made a bad decision to leave a family holiday in Asia and go to work in Paris. And I found myself under the bright, white, cold, bad decision vibe light of Hong Kong airport. And then I noticed on my ticket there was a secret door. And I walked through the secret door and I found myself in a place that felt like all of my decision had been okay. And it was the Cathay Pacific Lounge. And I have never been anywhere that changed my interior. Talk about interior design. My interior got redesigned by sitting for hours and hours, it turned out. Every single decision that had been made by the designer of this room seemed to care for my individual well-being. Every choice of every light, every choice of every piece of fabric, the soup that I drank loads of, and I kept going up for more and more. The feeling under my feet, the sound that the cutlery made when it landed on the table, the sound of a cushion moving, everything felt like it had been composed. And of course, it had all been chosen by this extraordinary woman, this designer, Ilse Crawford. And I could talk for a very long time about her influence. Anyone who has read Elle Decor magazine, it wouldn't have existed if she hadn't had the idea to found it. And think of how that has perpetuated the values of not just interior design, but how design can make a human being change. And I don't think it's possible to overestimate the importance of not only Ilse's own work, the work of her studio, her teaching, and how she has proliferated her values, perhaps even without knowing it, through the many collaborations and through the proliferation of the work through Elle Decor as well. So it gives me enormous, enormous pleasure to announce that the winner of the London Design Medal is the extraordinary Ilse Crawford.
I want to say a big thank you to Ben, John, and everybody at LDF who, are behind all this, and to the people who chose me and the studio, of course. And I want to say a big thank you to my team for all of their enthusiasm, skill, and perseverance. I mean, we do it together. It's a team sport, no question. I want to say thank you, of course, to the collaborators, because buildings involve so many people. I mean, you can't even imagine how long that list becomes. A project like the Lounge, the team here, the team in Hong Kong, it was huge. And somehow you keep them all on the road and you make that thing happen over years. But, without them, nothing would happen. To our mostly very trusting clients, mind design is a massively important part of what I do, so thank God for my moment in journalism. It's helped enormously. Jeanette Mix, who is the force behind at HEM in Stockholm, Toby Smith, who was the force behind the Cathay Pacific project. You always need a champion, somebody who's prepared to put their neck on the line for you, someone who's got a heart. It's very hard, I find, to make a difference with a committee. To Massimo Bottura and his partner, Lara Gilmore, who are behind Food for Soul, which is this really amazing NGO who asked us to look at Refectorio Felix, which is the community kitchen in Earl's Court. And, of course, as well, all those people that I have worked with and enjoyed being with along the way. So all my students, former students at Design Academy Eindhoven, where I taught for 20 years, I think I was trying to do a calculation, and there's around 650 or something of them now out in the world, and for so many years we talked about systemic well-being, about sustainable materials, about humanity, about health, about how all of this could be rethought into a new system, into systemic well-being. Those were fantastic conversations. I also want to say thank you on behalf of my profession, the interior design profession, which, sometimes gets a bit of a bad rap. It is not, as I was once told by a project manager, who will never be allowed to forget it, that interior design, well, it's nice to have, but not need to have, is it? I beg to differ, and very strongly. Inside buildings is where we live. It's where we spend so much of our time. I mean, the last few years have been extraordinary, but actually we spend a huge amount of our time indoors. Statistically, it's supposedly around 87%, but evidently growing, not diminishing. Design that is properly commissioned and integrated with a building can embed dignity, livability, humanity, and what's more, it can make long-lasting and adaptable spaces which are fit for the challenges of our future. So I think it's one part of a team that can make a better world. Thank you very much.
We always like to finish our evening with a toast to design.